What about like if you're standing under multiple umbrellas?
Yeah, there
Maybe.
you go. I've got an umbrella backpack that just has like basically a patio umbrella. Press a button and it just like makes an awning come out.
Oh, but you'd have to be an artificer to get that.
Oh, well, you can take a 1-level hit for that.
Oh, it's like one of the modern day ones where it has the remote. Where
Right.
like,
Yeah.
that's speed too. This big white plastic contraption like shoots out and just
The way of the sunshade.
3 turns later, it's fully deployed.
All right, you now have dim light for 10 feet.
Yes, and your speed is reduced to 10 feet, and you have disadvantage on all dex saves.
The real play would be to set it up so you can just like stick it into the ground. You know what? This isn't worth talking about.
A
This is
gust of
dumb.
wind, you automatically fail your save to stay put.
Yeah. Ooh. No fair. He gets a fly speed.
Welcome to Monsters and Multiclass, your Dungeons & Dragons fix. I'm Kevin Odie,
I'm Jared Bornigal.
And I'm Will Melvin.
and we'll be hanging out with you for a while to talk about anything and everything D&D related. This week we're taking a look at the Monk Warlock multiclass, Orcs Part 1, and then our very first segment of Ask Monsters and Multiclass. So pull up a chair and stick around for a while.
All right, so this week we're taking a look at the Monk Warlock multiclass. Monk requirements for multiclassing are going to be 13 Wisdom and 13 Dex, where a Warlock is going to be 13 Charisma. Monks are a martial class very dedicated to self-purity and literally finding the magic in them that comes out in the form of ki, a resource that they use to make themselves more monkey in combat. Warlocks are casters, their own form of full caster that are, Jesus, I'm losing it.
Short rest.
Yep. Short rest. Yep, that's what I need.
Rest.
They are short rest.
Sword.
They are short rest and sword. No, so their spellcasting comes back on a short rest, and it's very potent, and they usually get their powers from making a deal with a greater entity, and they offer up service to them. So, with these two, let's go ahead and turn it to Kevin for some first thoughts.
So as we've discovered since we've done a bunch of monk multiclasses, monks are notoriously hard to multiclass with because to get all your monk stuff, you have to give up a lot of things. No armor, not many weapons.
No shields.
Yeah, no shields. And then monks get better the longer they're a monk with their martial art die going up and their ki going up every level. So it's a really big cost to multiclass out of monk or into monk because you may not get a lot. Warlock, so I think there are certain things you could do here. Unique little combinations. It's going to be more dips and stuff like that than like full, equal part multi-class. But I think there's a couple routes we could take.
Yeah. Will?
I'm not loving it despite the warlock aspect of it. One of the biggest issues I kind of have with it is that there is kind of a almost slavish devotion to the ideals on both ends of this. And I feel like if you don't mesh that right, it might not make a lot of sense. There's a not required, but almost hinted at corruption to the warlock, where you are kind of out of control, whereas the monk, that seems like something you'd avoid.
Yeah, that makes sense to some extent.
You would have that issue with like that. Oh, I'm an incredible karate man, but I failed once and now I'm cursed for it. And I don't really like that.
So what I've thought about more from that role-playing perspective is a monk is really the obsession with perfection. And it's very difficult to do that for most people, to continue progressing towards perfection every single day. So the warlock, to me, comes as an easy way out. Maybe you are offered a path forward along this path of perfection. And that I could see a monk who does get a little bit corrupted by that idea of reaching for perfection. So
I like that idea a lot.
So I see something there. I totally get what you're saying. I think that, in the same way that a paladin is lawful and a warlock is usually chaotic, a monk is usually pretty lawful, but that can get kind of muddied once you fail. I mean, that's something that I think gets avoided in the level up process a lot of times, but can bring a ton of flavor to a multi-class, is failing to be what you're supposed to be. So maybe, you're level 5 monk and you're like, oh, I can't do it anymore. I can't keep monking it up. And so if somebody comes in and offers you a deal, a devil or a patron or whatever comes in service to you and says, hey, if you work for me, I'll give you some some warlock abilities, sure, whatever, but I'll also help you and help you move forward in that monk potential.
Right. It's very much like light side, dark side.
Yeah,
Stuff.
100%.
Or Star Wars, Jedi, Sith, bullcrap,
Mm-hmm.
that sort of thing, which, could work very well.
Now, as for,
Wait, Kevin, are you implying that you can like multi-class as a Sith? That's kind of the implication.
Are you saying there's a reason for Witch Bolt?
Like, oh yeah, no, just get a little bit of evil in there. You'll get some lightning, but you can totally be a Jedi. It's fine. Just stick to Jedi.
I mean, isn't that okay, I'm not the right person to talk about Star Wars. I'm really not. But isn't that the entire thing with Anakin going to the dark side?
No, then he went.
Is he's like, oh, I want emotions to like be okay to have.
He
And they're
switched
like,
all the way.
No.
He switched all the way to Sith. He was not a multi-class. That's the point.
But Sith isn't the multiclass. Jedi as a concept is its own. You know what? This is dumb. We're not the people to talk about this. We're really not. So we'll just avoid it. And people can yell at us for saying something wrong later, which is fine. Now, the first thing that I think of, though, is that this is Wisdom 13, Dex 13, Charisma 13, and those are all pretty important stats for these. Warlock needs their Charisma in order to have their Eldritch Blast actually be worth casting. Monks need Wisdom and Dex in order to get their AC up, and it's the only way that they can get their AC higher. They're gonna need Constitution because you just need Constitution. So there's 2 stats that they can ignore, Strength and Intelligence. So we're relying on 4 attributes to make this character not suck. I think there's some things you can do with whichever race you choose to get the correct attributes. Like I think Half-Elf gives you +2 to Charisma and +1 to whatever else you want.
To 2 other stats.
2 other stats.
Half-Elves are kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, they really are. So, I mean, there's...
Half-Elves could definitely do it. You could definitely get there.
Right.
And then for any build, having high Dex and high Wisdom is not really a bad thing. Those come up a lot.
It's true. They're probably the most common saving throws.
Right. Ability checks with Wisdom and...
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's something there, at least. Now... What type of warlock are you going to be, though, is what comes up for me. Because, when you mix a martial class, I think the thing we always go to with warlock is Hexblade.
Right.
But I'm not really sure that Hexblade fits this at all.
Yeah, you would have to be Kenzai Monk Hexblade.
Right.
I would think. Because then you could... That being said, you could just pick a regular monk weapon like short sword or something like that and make it your Hexblade weapon.
Right, but some of the benefit of going Hexblade is that you can use Charisma as your attack modifier.
Right.
And do you need that if you're going monk too? Because then you're going to get maybe 2 attacks with your sword, and then you're still going to have to make that bonus action attack with your fist that's going to have to use Dex. You can't just... Actually, I don't know if you can use Charisma for that then.
Yeah, I think it's all
Hexblade weapons, I think.
Yeah, and your fists aren't weapons.
We can squeeze that in, right?
my Hexblade weapons are my fists and nothing else.
Yeah, I forged a pact with the god of punching people.
When you attack, with that weapon, with the Hexblade weapon. So fists don't work for it. Yeah, so that's kind of a waste.
Right.
Which you do get right away. Hexblade Curse for a monk is pretty decent, though, because you get, you curse the target, and then you get bonus damage for all of the attacks. Yeah, you gain a bonus to damage rolls against the cursed target. And
How much do you get again?
Your proficiency bonus, which is nice. So that will scale with you no matter what.
And that's Hexblade's curse. But you can only use that, if I remember correctly. Is that on a long rest, or is that a
short rest? One's for short rest.
Okay, that's pretty good.
And monks attack a lot. Mm-hmm. For flurry of blows, if they're level 5 and one of the classes, they're going to get 5 attacks.
Right.
And then you're adding proficiency bonus. 4 attacks. And you're going to add your proficiency bonus 4 times.
Yeah, that
adds up.
Scales up pretty well.
Yep. And then also the increased chance to crit on a 19 or 20 instead of just 20. Again, if you're rolling 4 times to hit, that's really nice.
Right. Yep, that's not bad.
Yeah. But you're right. The Hex Warrior is pretty wasted because then you get proficiency in medium armor, shields, and martial weapons, which isn't really helping you
use any of that
as a monk. And then using charisma instead of strength or dex.
You're gonna need dex up anyways.
Yeah, I'd rather just focus on Dex, and then it's not really worth going to level 6, the Accursed Spectre.
Yeah, I mean, it's cool, and if, for some reason you want to, go for it. It's what you're going to get out of it is what you get from going to level 5 and 6 in Warlock, which is just, more spells, more of your, what are they called? The invocations, which can help you with a lot. I mean, invocations are what really make the Warlock class so interesting. And I think there's actually some cool interactions there around the Hadar's Grasp and the Repelling Blast. That's the one that pushes. Hadar's Grasp is the one that pulls.
Right.
So a monk, to me, is a battlefield control martial character. At level 5, they get their Stunning Strike, so a big portion of what they're doing is locking a single target down, usually the one that's the biggest problem, and just saying like, hey, I'll take care of them, everyone else you deal with the other stuff. And this kind of lets the idea of using their Eldritch Blast to push and pull people around in a way that puts them where they want them, and as well with the monk's increased movement speed, could make for a pretty interesting mechanical character where it's like really what you're doing is just like moving the pawns around to where it is going to be best for you and maybe for your, caster to get a good AoE attack or something.
Right.
Now, the other thing that I saw is that warlocks get a spell that is generally totally worthless, but it's called Cloud of Daggers. Do you guys know that one?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so
the 5-foot cube and stuff in it takes some damage.
You make a 5-foot cube. When a creature enters their turn enters it for the first time, they take 2d4 damage. When they start their turn there, they take an additional 2d4 damage. No save at all. So I like the idea of the Warlock being able to cast that, make the 5-foot cube, and then just using the Eldritch Blast and Stunning Strike to just kind of combo up and just keep that thing locked down into the Cloud of Daggers. And as you level up as Warlock, when you get 3rd level spells, that does an additional 2d4 as well. So you have actually a pretty good damage potential there if you can just push something into it. And maybe you're doing that through your Way of the Open Hand, which is a great subclass for this, that if you use your Flurry of Blows, you can also push. Continuing that idea of just being able to push and pull. So you can push the creature into it, maybe stun them, lock them down in it, and then from there just like move back if you need to and just keep them in it with the Eldritch Blast. Obviously not in the same turn. It's just more of like options that you have to do this push and pull.
Yeah, I think that was going to be a lot harder to get off in practice. Because I mean,
I don't think it's going to work at all.
Yeah, because when we're talking about being able to move things 10 feet, so it's their turn, they're just going to run more than 10 feet away, or they get right up in your face and cause you to have disadvantage on your attacks.
Right. But it's
stuff like that.
So if you are within that 10 feet, though, or if you're going up right next to it as well, so then maybe Eldritch Blast isn't really helping you there. But if you do have that Way of the Open Hand, then you can, push them away. You're at least going to force them to make an opportunity attack if they're going to run away from you. Or maybe if you can, I know this is a lot of attributes already, but if you can get the Sentinel feat, then you have the ability to just like, they try and run away. Nope. Just lock them down and keep them in that space to then you run to where you need, push them another 10 feet, and just keep getting them into that Cloud of Daggers. I agree it's not going to be like absolutely perfect every time, but it is something you can try and do. And I feel like it's one of those combos that if you can pull it off, you're going to be like, haha, I did it. Like, I actually did the thing.
2d4 a turn.
Well, no, it's 2d4 once, and then when their turn starts, an additional 2d4, plus all the damage from just attacking them normally.
Yeah, it's kind of an unfortunate spell.
That's really not too bad at damage. For 2nd level,
2d4.
2d4, and then you can keep doing it. It's concentration for a minute.
Right.
And then so that's 4d4.
I'd rather have Hex up on whatever you're doing here, because then you get a 1d6 for every attack.
Yeah. That's fair.
And it's
that's
just attack. It's very generic. I just pulled it up.
Right.
So Eldritch Blast, unarmed bonus attacks, whatever. Just whenever you make an attack.
Right.
It doesn't say take the attack action or anything.
That's fair. I guess what really it does scale well if you're continuing to go up in Warlock, because then at 3rd level spellcasting it's 44, and that's 44 when you push them in the first time. Then next turn 44 again, and then every turn you can continue that rally.
That's
so
right.
it's I think you're right. At 2nd level, I don't think that's very worth it. Maybe at 3rd level, definitely at 4th level, because that's going to start being 64, and that is a lot.
Right. But then you're competing with other 4th level Warlock spells.
Right, but
like
this is for the
Person
Warlock
and-
monk. Well, hold person, I mean, that's just making it easier to hit them, which
Advantage and then
it's automatic crits.
Yeah.
I have to do some math on that one. I wonder which
The
one
math
that
usually leans towards automatic
is. But
crits.
12d4 that's pretty good.
It's all right.
Really? Because that's like a pretty high level magic missile. Actually, I don't know if you can. Is that a 9th level magic missile?
I feel like we've cast that before. What do I do? I don't know. I've got a 9th level slot. I don't want to fuck it up, so...
Magic missile. No, you probably wouldn't cast that, but for a 4th level spell, I mean, that's pretty high damage. Again, it's not eliminating the damage you do just from hitting them normally.
Right.
Or you could just grab them.
I mean,
So we could sit here and talk about how there are like better ways to do a little bit more damage, but I don't think that's like a bad way to do it. And it is kind of cool. I mean, to me at least, the idea of just punching somebody back into a cloud of daggers and keeping them there and just being like, nope, stay. You stay. You're going to keep taking damage. And, hit them with your stunning strike. Then they literally can't leave it. Things like that.
I
Right.
think that's probably the better idea.
Yeah. Or yeah, try and grapple them.
Good
But
too.
I could swear there's better AoE spells too, like that. Like Hunger of Hadar. I'm trying to pull it up. It's maybe it's not loading, but
Oh, no.
oh, I lost your. There's Wi-Fi.
Arms of Hadar, is that it? Or is it
Hunger of Hadar, 24 radius, sphere, duration for a minute, it's concentration. That's what the cacophony of soft whistles and slurping noises that can be heard 30 feet away.
The slurping
Yeah, it's
noises.
magical darkness.
Mm-hmm.
Fully blinded if you're in it. Any creature that starts its turn in the area takes 2d6 cold damage. Any creature that ends its turn in the area must succeed on a dex saving throw or take 2d6 acid damage.
Okay. And then how can they leave? Is it like difficult terrain or anything?
They can leave.
Okay. Just one.
But it's it's a bigger area than the 5-foot cube of cloud
Right.
of daggers,
So you get
and the
more.
damage is comparable and also makes them blinded.
Which is definitely good there.
Yeah.
But you can't get up to that, can you? Because if you're in it as well, you're going to take the damage.
Yeah, you will.
Okay. There are trade-offs. I think you're
Yeah.
right. It's going to be better for multiple targets, which most of the time is probably going to be the right call.
Right.
But again, trying to mix it with this monk, which is very hard, that I see some benefit to just keeping that idea of a monk being I'm going to focus on this one target and do what I need to take down them.
Right.
The other thing is that they get a save on that.
Right.
Is it a deck save? Was it?
Yeah.
Okay. Which is usually the thing that monsters are good at. But,
Yeah. Unless you use your stunning strike and then they automatically fail it.
There you go. That's a good combo then. All right. So you get them into that. Way of the open hand, when on your flurry of blows, you can like push them a certain amount of distance. I think it's like 15 feet or something. Can you use your stunning strike on that as well?
I think stunning strike's an action. Oh, when you hit another creature with a melee weapon attack, you can spend 1 key point to attempt a stunning strike.
Right. So you can use your flurry of blows, and on the last hit, you push them and do a stunning strike, and it pushes them back into this Hunger of Hadar.
Well stunned. That's
yeah,
pretty
well
cool.
stunned.
I think you could do that. I know wording gets weird when it comes to melee weapon attacks, stuff like that.
If you can't do a stunning strike off of your punch, that seems like a huge, huge misstep.
That does, yeah.
But it is confusing because I know we've talked before about how you're not supposed to be able to smite off of a punch as a monk paladin. Like
No,
by,
you can't.
by the rules.
No, it's the improved divine smite at 8th level.
Oh.
Where every attack gets an additional 1d8. That's not supposed to trigger, but you could smite because it's just the weird difference in the wording, which I'm now very tempted to look up. See if that applies here.
To which? The stunning strike?
Yeah, the stunning strike off of Flurry of Blows.
So let's see. Stunning strike. Yeah, you said it's a melee weapon attack. You can spend 1 key point to attempt a stunning strike. So I guess then the question is, does stunning strike allow for your fist to be a weapon?
I
All
feel
right, so you are suffused with righteous might. This is the paladin one, where this does not trigger off an unarmed attack. So when you are suffused with righteous might, then all your melee weapon strikes carry divine power with them. Whenever you hit a creature with a melee weapon, the creature takes an extra 1d8 radiant damage. That does not trigger off of your unarmed attack. But then if you go to the monk stunning strike, when you hit another creature with a melee weapon attack, so I don't fucking know. Make a ruling, kids.
All right,
We're not going to
rule.
dive into the intricacies of that. Ask Jeremy Crawford.
If you added something to the monk that specifically required a weapon, you fucked up. You shouldn't
Yeah.
need to use a weapon in the monk.
Yeah.
That's like
Yeah.
the coolest part about a monk. I get the math, like, oh, I'm going to use my stick for 1d8, but
Right.
No, I think...
imagine like one guy carrying like one weapon, like, oh, I have to use this for stunning strikes.
So
bullshit.
there was an errata that specifically says unarmed strikes may be used as weapons in melee weapon attacks.
Cool.
So,
there we go.
yeah.
Okay.
And again, I think that's one that, like, at your table, I don't think anyone would ever sit there and say, no, you can't do that.
Right.
But, we're here to discuss rules at length. So we sometimes get a little carried away. Okay, so yes, back to that concept. That would be super cool.
Right.
You just push somebody back with your Way of the Open Hand right into your AoE attack. Heck, you could even just keep like moving around and just like pushing everybody back into it. You wouldn't be able to keep them stunned forever, but it at least, gets 4d6 damage that they just have to take.
Yeah, you're going to start burning through your ki though, because you need the one to do the pretty much two a turn.
Right, because you have to do Flurry of Blows to kick it off in the first place.
Also, they get a strength saving throw for the push.
Right.
If they fail, yeah.
Right.
But still, that's pretty neat. And
Once again, it's one of those that if you get it off.
And I think you're more likely to get them into a 20-foot radius sphere than a 5-foot cube.
Yeah, that's true. Now, what level do you have to...
Third
level? Okay. What level do warlocks get third level spells? Is it fifth?
Probably.
Yeah,
I mean, that would
make
kind of
sense,
weird
right?
if not. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. All right. So you have to get to 5th level in warlock in order to pull this off, and at least 3rd level in monk. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty cool. I feel like at 8th level, I'd be happy with that.
Yeah.
So that's
definitely. Yeah. So a monk 1 level dip in the warlock could actually be pretty decent if you have the charisma.
Okay.
Because you'll get hex. You get 2 hexes a day, which adds a 1d6 to every attack you do. And as we talked, monks get a lot of attacks. Even if they're not spending ki, they're still at least getting 3 by the time they're 5th, 2 attacks and then an unarmed. So that's an extra 3d6. Which is very nice.
Mm-hmm.
Then, the option of other utility spells if needed. And then they'll also get their first patron thing. So, like, if they go the Fiend, they'll get the temporary hit points if they reduce something to 0. The Archfey, they have the chance to charm or frighten things. Celestial. You can learn Light and Sacred Flame cantrips. I don't know. But also, you get Eldritch Blast for 1 level dip.
Right. Of course, the Eldritch Blast.
Right. Thought there was another really good one that worked well with Monk. Great old one, the Awakened Mind. I'll telepathically speak to any creature you could see.
Right.
30 feet.
One weird interaction that I was kind of wondering if it would be worth it, and I'm leaning towards no. If you go Pact of the Tome as the Warlock, you can choose, I think it's like any 3 spells, basically. Or I think it's cantrips.
That's a little bit of a stretch.
It is. It's a bit of a stretch. I don't remember the specifics.
It's a first level thing. You just choose any 3 spells.
I'm sorry. I think it might actually be cantrips that you can choose.
It's cantrips.
One of those cantrips can be Shillelagh. I don't know if there's much benefit to that of like needing a bonus action to set this up, but then you can use your wisdom modifier.
That seems a little bit.
Or would it be charisma?
It would be wisdom. And that
because you're getting it through a warlock.
I'd have to read this.
It makes it your spell casting modifier. Yes. So you got it as a warlock.
So there would be like a way where you don't need to go Hexblade, but as we just discussed earlier,
this was
a
strategy before they released the Hexblade. Was just shillelagh it up.
Okay.
I question why you would do that if you're also a monk.
And
you also can only use the stick.
Right. That would only work for your stick. Now, as I said, I don't think that's a particularly great idea. I think that's more one to bring up of if you thought of that combination and think it sounds like a good idea, it's probably not. Let's go with that.
Thank you for clarifying.
We'll call that a trap of this multi-class.
Don't go Pact of the Tome. Okay.
Well, I mean, Pact of the Tome as a whole isn't bad. That can be useful. But you probably don't want to go Pact of the Tome just so you can get Shillelagh.
No.
Yeah, you get cantrips.
I think a 1 level dip is actually a really, really short-sighted way to approach this. Because the Warlock gets a shitload of cool things open up at 2nd level.
Yeah.
And for the record, you only get 1 spell slot at 1st level.
Right.
It's just 1st level. So once you go to 2nd level, back to 2. And then 2 forever.
2, literally forever until 11th level you get a 3rd spell. So,
right,
yeah, I mean, I feel like if you're going to go into Warlock, you're right. I think there is something for just like a 1 dip. And, I mean, then you just get a spell every short rest. It's 1st level, so there's probably not too much. Honestly,
hex.
You hex. Yeah, you get a hex per short rest. Honestly, that's pretty good.
Right.
That's not, like, worth scoffing at, as well as whatever you get from your 1st level dip into the Fiend or Great Old One. So, I don't think it's bad, but you're right. I mean, most Warlocks, you want to go into at least 3rd level on them, just so you can get 2 second level spells. That's such a power increase right away. You can't upcast Hex though, correct?
Well, it just
can.
lasts longer.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it goes from like 1 minute to
an
8
hour.
hours to
And
24 hours.
Yeah, at like level 3.
And if you're getting it back on a short rest anyways,
Yeah.
I mean, it's still kind of worth it. But then you at least get the option of, okay, I don't want to cast Hex right now. You know, maybe I want to cast something else. Blindness and Deafness is something that you can get if you go the Fiend. So that can be really nice. Scorching Ray, probably not so much. I think what I do really like about the Warlock dip, though, and this is kind of unrelated, is that we've complained about the Sun Soul before, which is a monk that lets you just be a monk from 30 feet away, kind of, in like really limited scenarios. I would rather have Eldritch Blast than have the Sun Souls attacks.
Yeah. Yeah, so 1 level dip, you get a really awesome ranged cantrip that will scale with you.
Which is,
for the game.
the big crux of the monk is that you can't do anything at ranged.
Right. Your plus hit's not going to be the greatest because it's going to be charisma, but
it's
proficiency plus charisma, but still not bad.
And it scales up by your level as a total. So if you're level 11 as a whole, you're getting 3 Eldritch Blasts.
Right.
Sure, your plus to hit's only, plus 2, but you weren't going to get it anyways.
That's not good.
Okay, it should be higher than plus 2, actually. It should be your charisma plus your proficiency.
Yeah.
So minimum at level 11 should be plus 4. So it's not bad.
No, not terrible. Yeah, 1 hex per short rest, which decent as a monk.
Mm-hmm.
And then, your first thing. But yeah, if you go to second level, though, that does really open it up with the second spell slot. And then your Eldritch Invocations. And then, like, the Shadow Monk. I'm forgetting the exact...
I think it's just Shadow Monk, man.
Way of Shadow.
Way of Shadow. Combined with the Invocation lets you see in magical darkness.
Right.
That's great.
Yeah, so there's Devil Sight, which is...
Devil Sight, that's what it's called.
Eldritch or just the Invocation. Is it Eldritch Invocation?
Eldritch Invocations,
okay.
Yep.
So there's the Eldritch Invocation Devil Sight that allows you to see even in magical darkness.
Yes.
And then Shadow Arts, which is the monk's 3rd level thing. You can spend 2 key points to cast Darkness, as well as some other things. Dark Vision, Pass Without a Trace, Silence. So that's really cool because that combination is going to put something in darkness, and then you can see you get advantage on all the attacks. They are basically screwed.
Yeah.
You know,
they have
actually,
disadvantage and everything.
I think the Tiefling gets Wisdom and Charisma as their ups, and they can cast Darkness for free.
Oh, that'd be a really good raise.
So, if you want to be really like a special snowflake and roll out Tiefling Warlock, okay, buddy.
He's saying this having rolled 2 Tiefling Warlocks.
Hey, man, it works. It works really well. Fuck off.
But yeah, actually, that's really great combination. 'Cause, you get your free one, and then you could cast it with the Warlock spell slots, and in addition to the key, so you can have a lot of that. And then if you go to level 6 Monk Way of the Shadow, you get Shadow Step, so you can teleport into it.
Yeah.
And out of it and around it and stuff like that.
Damn, that's pretty badass.
Yeah. All with you being able to see perfectly well, everyone else in it completely blinded, so you have advantage on every attack, they have disadvantage on every attack. And monks get a lot of attacks, as we keep saying.
Right. And once again, there's always going to be that stunning strike to just say, and also you're staying here.
Yes.
Which I guess would give you the advantage anyways, but it's still just a fun combination.
Yeah. Oh, small correction. You can't necessarily just teleport into the darkness. You could teleport from dim or darkness to another spot of dim light or darkness. So if you're like out in a sunny field and darkness over there, you can just teleport into it.
But you can teleport about your shadow.
Yes.
Thing.
Yeah.
Which is like,
cool.
What, a 15-foot radius or some shit?
Darkness?
Yeah.
I think it might even be more than that.
I would just always carry an umbrella. It just seems so weird.
Well, so it's not in a shadow,
I know.
It's specifically dim light or darkness, and there's rules about what constitutes dim light.
What does that
Standing under an umbrella on a sunny day is not dim light.
What about like if you're standing under multiple umbrellas?
Yeah, there
maybe.
You go. I've got an umbrella backpack that just has like basically a patio umbrella. Press a button and it just like makes an awning come out.
Oh, but you'd have to be an artificer to get that.
Oh, well, you can take a 1-level hit for that.
Oh, it's like one of the modern day ones where it has the remote, where like, that's speed too. This big white plastic contraption like shoots out and just
the way of the sunshade.
3 turns later, it's fully deployed.
All right, you now have dim light for
And,
10 feet.
Yes, and your speed is reduced to 10 feet, and you have disadvantage in all dex saves.
The real play would be to set it up so you can just like stick it into the ground. You know what? This isn't worth talking about. This
Gust
is
of
dumb.
wind, you automatically fail your save to stay put.
Yeah. Ooh! No fair. He gets a fly speed.
Yeah, it is 15-foot radius.
All right.
That's pretty big.
So you
Yeah.
can, I mean, like, if for some reason you were running low on movement for running around and punching all these people.
as a monk, you know.
As a monk,
you,
yeah.
you know, continuously run out of movement and being
Yeah.
able to punch
Yeah.
people.
Shadow Step, though, does take your bonus action, which kind of sucks as a monk.
Well, it's to set up for something better, you know, going forward. So it's
What's the range on Shadow Step?
60 feet.
Yep.
That's not anything to scoff at.
No.
I just think that it's something that we've never actually dealt with. We had a Way of the Shadow Monk in the first campaign I played.
Way back.
Way back. And I don't remember how often that came up of like, is it dim light over here? Is it dark over here?
Yeah, we did it wrong. We just did it generically as, is there a shadow?
Okay.
Which
so
the
it
answer
came-
is always yes.
Yeah, so
Right.
it came up all the time.
Right. Man, it just seems so weird to me. Like how it's not a thing when I draw a battle map to think like, okay, so over here is dim light. Over here it's complete darkness, just like
Right.
by default.
But it can matter. I mean, dim light giving disadvantage on finding and
Definitely. And I think it's something if you're like in a cave, then
Right.
you know that if 3 of you have dark vision and 1 of you is holding a torch, then it's like, all right, whoever's holding the torch, there it is. It's still only dim light, I think. Or is it make it bright lights
it's
for
bright for a bit and then
right.
dim and then
But that makes it easy to tell.
Right.
But as you said, like out in a sunny field, you're never going to have this work out for you.
Right.
But I feel like you're in darkness more often than people really give it. Like at night, if you're having a fight outside,
Right.
the moon overhead shouldn't be enough for bright light.
No,
that should
definitely
be dim.
Yeah.
But if we ever have a fight at night, do I give, +2 AC to everybody for everything?
I don't think it works that
you?
way.
No, because everyone has dark vision, so I guess it doesn't come up. No, I don't, because it just seems silly.
Even if we didn't have dark vision, is that how that works?
In what way? I mean,
If you're in dim light?
yeah, I think it's you know what? No, it's like people are obscured. I
Yeah,
don't
there's like
remember.
lightly obscured.
Right.
Obscured.
I was thinking of half cover. It doesn't provide cover or in the same metrics like half cover does.
It's not like a core mechanic. Why would we know this?
Because that's what I'm saying. It doesn't come up. It
Yeah,
never
no, it
comes
doesn't.
up.
And the reason it doesn't come up is because it's not important for like 90% of situations. If
Because
you have like
99% of classes have dark vision.
yeah, and most of them don't teleport through shadows.
Right. There's a very small subset who do.
Where's the dim light, man? It's like, shut up, man. I don't want to deal with that.
Right.
Reroll a Way of the Four Elements or something.
Oh, well, let's not punish them.
You shouldn't have spoke out of turn.
I would say that is one big benefit of we've talked back and forth about doing the TV on the table with the projected map and
Right.
using like Roll20 or something like that. It's always it doesn't really seem worth it. I'm pretty sure I haven't used it, but I'm pretty sure Roll20 can and does track light and vision and all of that for you automatically,
That's pretty cool.
which would be kind of nice. It would have been really useful in Out of the Abyss because I know I definitely screw that up all the time.
Yeah.
But
Yes, you did, Kevin. You did.
I
screw it
did,
up.
yeah.
But-
I'm the worst.
I remember just sitting there thinking, it's like, I shouldn't be able to see this well. But he never brought it up.
Yeah, should have been a lot of dim light because you were dwarfing it up. But again, especially for a campaign like Out of the Abyss, when we were almost always in some form of darkness, I think everybody had dark vision because even Awesomeers get dark vision for whatever reason.
I think it's because we cheesed it.
Officially, dark vision does make darkness
No,
dim.
I what I'm saying is, I think we cheesed it in the sense we all like subconsciously like, you know what? I really don't want to not be able to see in the dark for the cave campaign.
Right. Oh, you're saying we selected things for
Yes.
that? Well,
I mean, we'll never admit to it, but
I don't know. I wanted to play more a paladin Awesomeer, so that was its own form of.
see,
cheese and
you're
randomness.
justifying it. You're justifying it.
I'll justify it. I'll spend here just.
All right, so here's
All
an
our
idea
time.
I just had that I don't know. I might have yelled about this before, but we were talking about how like if an artificer is an interesting multi-class if you want a thing and don't want to just force your DM to be like, all right, here's a mechanical thing that you have because of story reasons. I think Eldritch Invocations, there's a couple that are really good. It's like, all right, I want to be, a tiefling who never sleeps. How do you do that?
Right.
The DM can just give it to you,
Right.
but it's also an invocation. And it seems like kind of a waste if you like forego mechanical invocations, but it's great flavor, and especially if you're doing a monk dip and just really are looking for that shadow thing, for
Right.
instance. Yeah, you can go aspect of the moon and be like, oh yeah, I don't sleep, or I can read all writing, or I can read any written text.
Or I can speak with animals.
Exactly. There's multiple ways to get there, but there's some unique things in there, and I think never sleeping actually does make good monk flavor.
It does.
Right. I think this is one of the times where I wouldn't suggest taking the invocation of Agonizing Blast to add your charisma modifier to damage from your Eldritch Blast, because you're probably not using Eldritch Blast that much, and your charisma is probably not high enough to really matter.
Right.
You know, it's like the couple of times you do it and it actually hits, you're going to get an additional 2 damage.
Right.
4
And that's if you
damage,
take it up
maybe.
to 14.
Right. So, I
And
mean,
you just keep it at the prerequisite 13. It's +1.
right.
It's,
Which I always recommend at least going to 14, but that's besides the point.
sometimes you can't swing it.
Sometimes you can't. And in this case, you know, it's like Eldritch Blast should be your, like, oh no, I'm not going to get far enough unless I use a key point to Step of the Wind, and I don't want to do that this turn, so I'm just going to take, you know, my Eldritch Blast, and maybe I hit, maybe I don't. It's not the end of the world.
Right.
So I would highly suggest not going for the usual 2 of Armor of Shadows or Agonizing Blast. You know, just move around that. I guess Armor of Shadows, how often, Will, since you're the Warlock expert, how often do you think people take Armor of Shadows? That's one where you can cast Mage Armor on yourself.
There was a poll actually where they asked people like, "What invocations do you take?" I don't remember the exact results,
man.
but it's not that great.
I mean, you get Light Armor as a Warlock.
Yeah.
So as long as you can get a Light Armor that gets you up to base 13, which I think Padded Leather does. There's definitely one Light Armor that goes up to 13 AC. Then from there, it's like, why did I bother with this invocation?
Yeah, that's the issue. And with warlocks being, you know, very, very single attribute dependent, everybody always maxes out decks after they're done with charisma.
Right.
Just, universally, they're going to find that. So if you wanted to avoid that, that's the only reason. But I mean,
So yeah, again, you can choose a lot of the other cool invocations.
I
which is
assume
nice.
having Mage Armor up does not count against you for all your monk stuff. Because that could be a benefit. Like if your wisdom and dex aren't crazy high, and so you don't want to wear armor because then you don't get in martial arts and all the other monk crap.
That's actually a really good
You just
question.
use Mage
willing
Armor.
creature who isn't wearing armor.
Yeah, and you're not wearing armor with Mage Armor. So
That's the mechanic. I mean, that's not actually a bad idea for this one.
No, that's not at all. That's a really good point. I'm looking at Mage Armor right now. Isn't wearing armor, magical force protects them. They are not considered wearing armor. It specifically says if they wear armor, then it removes Mage Armor.
right.
That's actually a very good point. Huh, we might need to go back through our, I think we had a wizard monk one. Did we do that multi-class yet?
I don't know, man.
It doesn't
Probably.
matter. Probably not. Doesn't matter. Well, either way, just that's good. Keep that in mind. So that's wisdom you don't have to worry about. Because I think that's really the big thing for monks with their wisdom beyond their saving throws. So stunning strike saving throw relies on wisdom to raise that DC.
Right.
So you're still going to want wisdom, but that makes you less reliant on it potentially.
You know, looking at it just pure math wise, we're talking about 10 plus dex plus whiz versus 13 plus dex. That's competing with plus 3 whiz, like on par. So we're talking about 4 and 5 whiz is where it changes.
You keep saying whiz.
Yeah. Whiz.
Instead of charisma, I'm going to say cha.
Cha, 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 cha. So we are talking about pretty high level whiz. So, I mean, no, yeah.
It's even funnier when you say it
is.
like that.
So much whiz.
When you say silver, like, it's like just
Like 20 whiz.
unbelievable amounts of whiz. The sheer amount of time it would take to produce that whiz. Blowing my mind right now.
Shouldn't be funny.
It really shouldn't.
But it is.
Podcast for children.
All right, so let me make sure I'm following that. So you're saying that until you get to those higher levels of whiz, it's probably better to go with the mage armor?
Yeah. I mean, universally.
Right. Okay. So, I mean, that makes sense. And you can always switch out your invocations.
Yes, you can.
Which is good, too.
But you have to level up again.
Is it level up in Warlock, too? So if you're like, oh, I'm done with Warlock, never switching, it's like, well, you can't change your invocations. You're stuck with Mage Armor.
Shit, I decided to max out my wisdom. Guess I have to go take another level in Warlock. So that's actually a decent choice if you want to kind of abandon it. You don't really get anything from wisdom as a monk other than that.
Again, just the spell save DCs. Or not spell save.
Right. Like, I mean, if you go weigh the 4 elements, it's going to come up a lot because
you've got bigger problems.
But yeah, I don't think it's good for this.
Nope, I'm with you.
Seems like a big waste. The Drunken Master, like they get a lot of maneuverability stuff, which could be useful for like the Hexblade, like Tipsy Sway. Yeah, Drunken Technique and Tipsy Sway. You know, if you do Flurry Blows, you come under the benefit of the disengage action. Tipsy Sway, you know, if you're prone, you can leap to your feet or you can redirect attacks. And for any martial character, that's useful stuff.
Yeah.
And so a Hexblade will find use out of it. I don't know if it's worth the 3 monk levels because you're kind of wasting a lot of other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You know, almost go like 2 into Rogue and just get cunning action.
Yeah, that's always been the competing one for me. Rogue
And
seems
then
like
you don't
a
have to
much
worry
easier
about
choice.
wisdom. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like Step of the Wind, again, for like Hexblade's going to be nice, but maybe just go Rogue.
I hate how it's just universally better. They both
Yeah.
get cunning actions and their key at second level, and monks have to spend a resource to do what rogues do for free every single turn.
Right. And on top of it, at that point, rogues get their sneak attack
Right.
and expertise.
Right. And they can wear armor.
Sneak
Yeah.
attack
And
actually
no-
doesn't pair well with the most of the warlocks, so you know it's only the hexblade thing.
Yeah, for sure.
So-
Yeah, Hexblade only, yeah.
That
I mean, I
sucks,
don't. That
though.
being said, if you're like the Fiend, Warlock of the Fiend, and you pick Pact, the boon is the blade.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think. Yeah. I mean, that still could be a melee one. You can still get your extra attack level 5 with invocations. I'm pretty sure. Or is that 6?
Yes,
So, I
that
mean,
is
yeah,
how it
yeah.
works.
Yeah, a lot of the Warlock patrons are not necessarily caster only, depending on what boon you pick.
You just have to remember that there are not a lot of benefits that you get out of your pact boon. And you forego having a closet, which is dope.
That's true. Closet's always nice.
It's an invisible bat you can use at any time. That's awesome.
Then I'm pretty sure you can communicate with the right invocation.
I think
Like always just have like a telepathic link with them.
yeah, it's the same plane of existence. It's just upcast, find familiar times a million.
Right.
I don't know.
So, I mean, what are some other, I guess, more on the role-playing side? We've talked a lot about mechanics, but I think you mentioned Way of the Shadow. That definitely works well role-playing wise, just
Right.
because of the, always say just edge on top of edge.
Right.
Where the Warlocks, Dark and Brooding, Way of the Shadow, Dark and Brooding. Perfect. You also like shadows. You like shadows. You like shadows. You should be friends. Great.
Now
Multi-class
kiss.
made in heaven. Yeah.
Yeah.
The other one that I was thinking of that actually goes against what I was saying earlier, where a monk is like thirsting for more power, that I would absolutely hate if somebody brought, but is a celestial warlock. It actually could work very well with a monk. And that idea of like you are trying to meet the purity of body ideals, and because of that, celestials almost accept you into their own. It's
Okay.
a strong way of putting it, but like they recognize the potential in you, and so they offer you a deal of, hey, if you work for us, we'll give you Eldritch Blast and a couple of healing and whatever. That's turning it into a mechanical thing, but
Yeah.
I mean, it's
It fits. I mean, cleric would almost be, but
I agree.
Yeah.
I think cleric would be a little bit more fitting, but
that being said, though, I mean, a cleric is like a god, and you
Right.
go in under service of a god, where the celestial is just like celestial entities.
it's the opposite of making a
unicorns
deal
and
with the devil.
So yeah, that's like I could see like a unicorn going. You know what? You're kind of a cool monk, dude. Here's some powers if you like keep on that path. Versus
Whoa,
like,
dude, did you just do a backflip? I fucking love backflips.
Okay, so that's for a more silly campaign, but I would also love to play that character. The one who's just got like a unicorn who just thinks everything he does is dope. He just punched that dude and his just fucking spleen fell out.
He flew like 15 feet backwards. Whoa. I know, cool. I'm a horse with a horn.
unicorn is one of the listed.
It is,
it's
yeah,
one of
yeah,
the
you're not
celestial,
wrong.
yeah. Or kind of the opposite of the first one you said about where they get sort of corrupted. It's someone who's a warlock who is feeling this corruption in themselves and losing control and not liking it. So they start studying with monks to try and harness inner peace a bit and kind of get themselves under control.
Mm-hmm. Remove that element of chaos,
right?
The rejection element. I always like those ones. I think that's something that can very well come up naturally, and I feel like every person who goes into Warlock should have that in the back of their mind of just like, all right, so when I get out of this, what am I going to do?
Okay,
Because
buddy.
if your DM is doing their job at some, okay, maybe not, but because I know for you, you're like, it ends when I take over the world. But for most people, they're trying to play a good character or a character who's overcoming something, and using that warlock patron as the thing to overcome means that afterwards, if you're still going to adventure, you need to probably go into something else. It's going to be weird to keep going into warlock.
Right.
So monks would be an absolutely perfect one. Either you have a monk in your party already, in which case you're probably losing out on a lot by going into monk as well. Maybe. I don't know how that would look. But, gives you a direction to go.
Right.
Or there's a time skip and you spend some time studying with monks.
Right.
Either way, could be pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's a lot of really cool ways you could take this. Just be creative with it, because both of these classes are ones that require a deliberate choice on the character.
Yeah.
It's not something that's just going to happen to them, generally.
Generally.
I was going to say, maybe like the great old one might accidentally happen to you, because like you get touched by it on,
You open up a book. And
you go a little mad, yeah. Other than that, yeah.
Other thing I was thinking is Shadow Monk and Celestial Warlock. Nothing besides it just would be kind of funny as like this great balancer. And especially because they're both kind of the inverse of what you expect from the class.
Okay.
Where a monk is like the lawful kind of good type. So you put the Shadow Monk, whereas the Celestial Warlock's like the opposite of the normal Warlocks you see.
Yeah. I don't see that for the Monk. For the Celestial, absolutely. That's the opposite of what you expect out of a Warlock.
Right.
Monk, though, I don't so much see that. Like the Shadow Monk could still be lawful.
Right.
It edges towards the ninja aspect of it.
Right.
And that's fair. Maybe it's the assassin Shadow Monk.
Right.
Because that's where you're getting like the ninja aspect from. I don't have much more beyond that. They're opposites, and I like opposites because you could do something with
stuff,
it.
Yeah.
Right. But no, you're right. It's not like I think all shadow monks are like some corrupt, underhanded blah blah. They're not rogues. They're shadow monks. They are dedicated to something, usually lawful. Honestly,
Murder.
Lawful murder. that's my character alignment. Whoa, so you're a murderer? A lawful murderer.
Technically, murder is illegal killing, so that doesn't really work. That's the irony. There we go. That's perfect.
There you go.
Lawful murder. Light and dark.
And of course, Sun Soul would kind of go well with Celestial Warlock flavor-wise, but
Why?
you end up having to go into Sun Soul.
Right.
So that's where I'll stop with that one.
I can spend resources to do something worse than Eldritch Blast.
Right.
Congrats, buddy.
I guess the benefit is you can still use your bonus action to make a flurry of blows, right? If you do the Sun Soul. Yeah, I'm not saying it's a good idea. Then why did you go Warlock?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I don't know. I only really like the Karate Master and the Shadow Guy.
Karate Master and Shadow Guy, that's it?
Those are the only two subclasses I like for combining with Warlock.
I think Way of the Open Hand. Or is that what you're saying?
Yeah, Karate Guy.
Okay, that's Karate Guy. Sorry, I misunderstood, obviously.
Yeah, the rest are just kind of, I don't know, they don't really fit.
Drunken Master, I don't mind because, it doesn't have to be a drunk. And it can be, as I said earlier, somebody who's on that path of perfection. Way of the Four Elements just sucks, but I don't have an issue with it in the same deal of flavor-wise.
Oh, but you get spellcast. Wait.
You get really bad spellcasting.
It's kind of like Warlocks, but Warlocks get really good spellcasting. Yeah.
Yeah. We haven't talked about Way of the Long Death too much.
No, it's not very good.
And I just mean that as like a whole, as a podcast. We haven't talked about Way of the Long Death too much.
Seems like most of the Sword Coast Adventure Guide ones just kind of got lost.
They just fell flat.
Yeah, except for Blade Singer.
Right.
For the wizards, that comes up a lot.
But those can only be elves.
True. Kensai was mentioned as it could probably go with
Hexblade.
I don't see why not. Again, you're kind of losing out on some stuff, at least the fact that you can.
You're
or you
also
can
fucking up the
use
flavor,
charisma.
in my opinion, because the Kensai is like, oh, look at all these weapons I can use. It's like a ninja,
Oh,
but he's
yeah.
got like 900 knives in his tiny robe.
Right.
And they're like looking at him and just like, whoa, look at all these weapons I'm proficient in. Whereas the Hexblade's like, this is a magical sword that I'm good at using because it's magic. It's like the opposite
Right.
direction.
And I can only use this one mic. He's a bard now, I guess.
I like lamps. Yeah, I don't think you just get much out of that, personally. You got anything, Kevin?
No.
No,
we're
I
good
think
to
that's
move on.
it. I do think that, overall though, this is there's something. I don't know. I think initially when I saw we rolled this one up, I was pretty like, oh, it's gonna suck. Because all monk ones suck. But you can do something with this in both aspects. And I still really like that stunning strike in the Arms of Hadar thing.
Yeah.
That's good. Is it Arms of Hadar? Grasp of Hadar?
There's Arms of
In the
Hadar.
arms
Hunger of Hadar. I will say that I'm like I am once again disappointed that the get devil sight, cast darkness, drag creatures into said darkness
Right.
and beat the hell out of them is still just like a prevailing mechanic
Right.
for any combination.
It's just so strong. I mean, it's hard to get around it at all.
Yeah. I mean, it's a great strategy and I'll never look down on it, but it's just got a dominance I don't appreciate.
It is bad for the rest of your party, though.
True.
Fuck 'em. They should have rolled Warlock too.
Everybody heads to do at least 2 into Warlock and get Devil Sight.
Yeah, no, that's a great idea. It's like everyone's giving me shit for not having dark vision in the party. Do the opposite. Only like, oh, you guys should be Warlocks.
Yeah.
It was great, and you get Devil's Sight.
Right.
Not my fault you can't see in that.
Yeah, I mean, I think overall, though, the only thing is you are going to hit the standard multi-class issues, which is you're not going to have the highest ability scores of anybody in your party.
No.
You're probably going to be pretty weak in that regard. But I'll always bring up that ability scores aren't as important as they seem if you can do a lot of really cool stuff just outside
Right.
of that. Like even looking at Embers, your current rogue paladin that relies on strength, dex, and charisma. I don't know what his dex is right now, but we're level
18.
Okay, so it's 18. It's not at that 20. And I don't think I've ever once thought that you're falling behind because your ASIs are a little bit lower
No,
or your ability
Abilities,
scores.
right.
It just doesn't really come up that much. It's again,
Right.
it's a 5% difference per ASI. So if your
Right.
dex is hitting 70% of the time, it's still hitting 70% of the time, and then you can do all the cool stuff that you do.
Right.
You're not going to notice too often when you rolled a 14 and you needed a 15. It just doesn't come up. So
Right.
to anybody who's, I guess, weary about that, fuck it.
Right.
But that's all I have for the Monk Warlock. Do it.
Yes. Do it.
Just do it. Oh, we can't say that. Got to cut that. All right, so now for our promotional minute or whatever amount of time. This week's episode is sponsored by Smuggler's Coffee. They have provided us with a bag of coffee to give away to a listener. So head on over to our Twitter, normal Twitter rules of giveaways, like, follow, retweet, sacrifice your firstborn, and you can win a bag of coffee. I have had some of their coffee recently because they sent me some as well, and it's extremely tasty, and it's D&D themed, so it makes me happy. And more importantly, supporting small businesses and such feels good. So stop buying Starbucks coffee. That's the right pedestal to get on right now. As for us, as usual, if you are not, follow us on Twitter. That is monsters_multi. Find our subreddit, which is our Monsters and Multiclass. We recently started a Patreon, so if you want to contribute to us and throw money at us so we keep getting better at it and better equipment and actually pay our hosting fees and things like that, you can help us out there. Links literally everywhere. So, yeah, I think that's it. Anything from you guys you want to say?
Nope.
Why do I get stuck with this stuff?
Because you're
I
bad
don't
at
know.
it.
I'm better at it? I'm a fumbling mess.
The amount of ums and uhs I have to cut out in editing is insane during these. When we're just talking naturally, not a lot of them when it comes to the not scripted but somewhat scripted bits.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I gotta like buckle in. It's all right. Really pay attention here.
Sorry. If you gave me push to talk, just like right here, I just like would cut out my own ums. That'd be useful. We should try that. Anyways, with that, let's get into the orcs. So this episode, we are going to take a deep dive into the orcs. So everybody has probably fought an orc in D&D. It's similar to the goblin type setup where it's just something that needs to be dealt with, usually from a low-level party. But with Volo's Guide to Monsters, the orc lore in 5th edition at least has now quadrupled and is pretty dense and allows you to change up how you use orcs and put them into your campaign in a bunch of different interesting ways and really flesh out what makes orcs motivations and everything. So I don't even know where to start with this. So, okay, how about this? If you are familiar with orc lore at all, then you're familiar with Groomsh. He is the god of, well, I guess all of the orcs, but an embodiment of their chaos and what drives them to go out and pillage and raid and just war. And that all started because orcs didn't have a home. As all of the gods were picking places for their people. Elves got over here in the pretty forest, humans took over here, dwarves took the mountains, and then orcs were just left sitting there going, hey, what do we get? And they're like, ha, nothing, you dumb orc. And so then he killed somebody. Groomsh got very mad and got into a fight. Anyone, yeah. He didn't. He got into a war with the elven god. Right. And from that, I believe he had his eye taken out. And because of that, orcs hate elves. And a lot of that comes up through all of orc history, where they just will destroy anything elf-related throughout their pillaging. But they do have a bunch of other gods that drive them in different ways. And that part is what was really new to me as a whole. I don't know where to start. Where do you guys want to come in? That's
there's a whole pantheon of gods of the orcs, where Groomsh is the patron god who kind of whispers in all of the orcs' ears and drives their bloodlust and fury as they go out. But yeah, I mean, there's a bunch here. So yeah, Groomsh is the patron. Then you have Ilnivel, the war maker. And there's different within the clans with the tribe of the orc. There's different kind of clans of different orcs worshiping different gods.
That was one of the first things that was really interesting to me, was the fact that in just a particular tribe, it's not like each tribe is dedicated to one particular god. They all recognize Groomsh as like kind of the big one.
Right.
But you know, there are different, I guess, followers within the tribe.
Right, that specialize more. Right. So like Ilnivel is the strategist, and we're probably going to butcher a lot of these, but bear with us. That's the strategist. Orcs that follow Ilnivel are the strategists. Often they're the tribe chief and stuff like that. Then you have Baktru, who is, that's really where the kind of physical might and ruthlessness comes in. The followers of Baktru are usually the younger ones looking to prove themselves. They're like the meat of a force. It's saying generally if anybody's running into orcs like out in the field pillaging, they're probably followers of Baktru. Then you have Luthik, which is actually Groomsh's wife. Right?
Yep.
Yeah. That one's Groomsh's wife, who is the one that's responsible for the orcs to breed and continue to grow. The followers of Luthik are, like, she's the cave mother. They are usually staying back, not going out and fighting. They're raising the whelp. I think they call them whelplings, the baby orcs, essentially. And without Luthik, orcs would probably die out because they don't actually have a strong desire need within themselves to breed and procreate. They kind of see it as just almost like a frustrating necessity.
Right.
They like, if we don't do this, Luthik's going to get mad and we're going to die out. So we will pair up, have orc babies, and move on. And other than that, the men and the women are pretty much different to each other. Mm-hmm. Another, that really interesting thing that kind of goes against a really common lore thing, and we won't dive too much into this, but you hear a lot of people like to go to saying orcs rape other races. And that's where half orcs come along. And, it's kind of a really terrible thing, obviously. And this is saying that's actually not how it works according to official lore here.
Right.
They don't. Any like half orcs are like usually they respect the strength of another person or another.
Or they're cunning. Or whatever.
Or something like that. And they agree to procreate with each other to produce these half orcs to benefit both the tribe and themselves.
Right.
And it's generally like barbarian tribes. Like,
right.
That was part of the lore of barbarians, for instance, is there are people who live outside of civilization. And if you have nothing to pillage, the orc doesn't care. So it's basically they live in very similar ways.
Mm-hmm. Right, exactly, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a way that people might be misusing orcs to a large extent.
Right, yeah, definitely. And it's one of those things you got to be... we don't do that in our campaign.
No.
It's a hard stop on anything like that. I think most campaigns are like that, and as they should be. And it's kind of nice where it's not the official lore of orcs.
Right.
I don't know if that's changed or the original, but whatever. Then you get into the two other gods where...
They're creepy.
Yeah. These are the ones where, like, you don't really think about them with orcs, but Utrus, the White Hand, is the god of disease and petulance. Usually the weaker orcs end up as followers of Utrus if they're not killed outright. They're like the shamans, the traffickers of the dead. They kind of fill that role. They're usually very much shunned and live on the outskirts of the orc tribe and society. And they do some really... I think the chosen of Utrus, where if a orc suffers from a gruesome disease, the orcs of Utrus will take them in and develop that disease while keeping the orc alive, so they become this just basically like a plague bomb.
Mm-hmm.
And then they just send them in first into like these encampments and civilizations to spread their plague.
Right. Yeah. I think there's so much that you can do with that. I mean, if you're just a party wandering along and you have a plague bomb charging towards you, that's going to be a quick decision that you need to make that is just going to be awesome.
Right.
Now, mechanically, there is a stat block for these.
And some really, really gruesome art.
And some gruesome art. It kind of looks like it reminds me of a boomer from Left 4 Dead.
Yeah.
It's that same kind of concept. Mechanically speaking, though, it's something that isn't that big of a deal for a party to just have happen to them. You basically get poisoned, and then you can just keep making saves to get rid of the poison, which is a little bit of a bummer. But at the same time, if your combat is starting off with this thing just running up to you and exploding, one, super cool, very cool. Two, if half the party is now poisoned and has disadvantage on everything, and maybe they keep failing those saves because sometimes the dice just aren't in your favor, that's a very unique fight that you're not normally going to have. Recently, even, I had orcs attack you all. It was just like a random encounter or something. To think of how that would have felt a lot more memorable if I started it off with one of these things charging at you and then just exploding its guts all over you. That's a very different fight.
For sure. And it's also then a simple homebrew to make it a bigger deal where it's not just poisoned.
Right.
And like it will carry some actual disease that you make up. That now becomes a thing the party has to deal with.
Very much so.
And then the last one is Shargas, the Night Lord. I'm probably butchering all these. These are the...
I think you're killing it. If we got Magoobliet down, I think we're doing well on these.
Yeah. These are the sneaky orcs, the underhanded ones, the ones that pull strings behind the scenes and go and assassinate key figures and stuff like that. They are also shunned from the main orc tribe because that sort of underhanded nature is seen as disrespectful, dishonorable, because orcs are supposed to be just... Their sheer might and ferocity should overcome any problem. So when they need to resort to these tactics, it's considered shameful, but they keep them around because that's kind of a necessity.
Also because they have this culling the weak, which is their entire thing is if an orc's just not living up to expectations, then the other orcs might come around and say, hey Shargas people, Jim over here has been slacking the past couple of weeks. Would you guys, take care of him? And they'll just come in the night and just assassinate these orcs because you're not living up to our standards. Sorry. Which is definitely interesting. I could see that being an entire plot point. Maybe you find an orc on the run because they've been targeted and tagged as one of these underperforming orcs.
Right.
And now
That's like an incredible act of charity. It's like, oh, we're going to help this chaotic evil orc who's also a lazy do-nothing.
well, okay, this is jumping ahead a little bit, but if you look at the role-playing and orc section in Volo's Guide to Monsters, the orc flaws are absolutely hilarious because they are not what we would generally consider flaws. I understand the value of civilization and the order that society brings. That is considered a flaw in orc society.
I disagree with it.
I have a calm temperament and I let insults roll off my back. So maybe that actually might be easier because as the orcs say, like, hey, this orc doesn't fall in line with our views, with our cultural views, and they come running out, the party finds them, and it's like, why are they trying to kill you? And it's like, well, I don't fear the gods, and I have no patience for superstitions. Like, oh, okay, that's fine. It's cool. All right, you're like totally normal. So that's good, because then you get some party conflict of like, but they're an orc. We can't just let them,
Spread their cringy atheism.
it's Shushar all over again from Out of the Abyss. But no, because the orcs, when it's saying I don't fear the gods, it's specifically saying the orc gods, because that's a very big thing in orc culture, is that you don't follow your gods. You fear them being mad at you for not doing what they tell you to do. So that's saying maybe they're doing that in a way of they're too strong for that. They're like, oh, I'm stronger than the gods. I don't care. In which case, maybe they're going to murder you anyways, but it's cool. And say that gives you something to then relate to them. You say, oh, we also don't think that orcs should, just fearlessly charge into battle and die. So one of these flaws is I believe in living to fight another day. So all of these, again, just make really good for, what they consider flaws might be something the party can actually agree with and find reason to protect them.
Right. And the part about fearing the gods is a kind of segues into a really major thing of orc society. So we start with the gods because the gods are such a major part, and pretty much all of the stat blocks in Volos are the followers of each individual god, and we'll dive into those later. And as Jared said, they very much do fear the gods. It's not a reverence, it's not a respect, it is a fear that they do this stuff. And they're extremely superstitious, trying to look into meaning of all sorts of little symbols and stuff like that, where every individual tribe has these little superstitions built up, where there's bunch of examples of them in here, but it's like saying seeing 3 crows in the morning is always good luck. If you bury 5 stones before going on a long journey, you'll always find your way home safely.
I wish
Stuff
that was
like
true.
that. That'd be nice.
I'm sure they wish it was true too.
Yeah.
Because I think that's the kicker. It's all bullshit.
Yeah, and this superstition and fear of gods can be used to manipulate them. A powerful wizard with illusions and stuff like that could craft things in a way to be able to push these orc tribes to do its bidding based on these symbols, but they're just illusions. So they're can be very easy to manipulate. Mm-hmm. And so that's how you could find orcs under the kind of employ of all these different things.
Yeah, which, again, another great way to use them. And I'm really happy with the additions to Volo's Guide to Monsters, of course, because every single one in here just expands upon pre-given lore that in the monster manual kind of fell flat. But all of the stat blocks for these things are pretty darn cool.
Right. I'm thinking since this is part 1, maybe we'll just focus on the monster manual ones, and then we could do the stat blocks in part 2 next episode of Volos.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah. Still more on the lore and the orc way of life. Another aspect that I never really considered with orcs that makes it interesting is, I think even in talking about him here, I use the term bloodlust. It's not so much bloodlust. It's more they like to go out and pillage and take treasure and booty and take it home and kind of grow their wealth. So it's saying if they attack humans or halflings, they will actually oftentimes leave a lot of them alive. And anyone that's could pose a threat, they kill. But then they'll leave most of these villages or whatever alive, because it means if they're left alive, they could just go back and pillage them again. It's a recurring thing.
Right.
Then with dwarves, they actually really covet their dwellings. And so they would almost rather just the dwarves just run away. They don't
Right.
they don't want to fight them. They just want them to run away and steal their houses, and that's where they're going to live.
And more than anything, it's like they respect the dwarves. They're
Right.
like, wow, they made a really, really nice house. Get out.
Right. Yeah, they have really no desire to kill them. They will. I mean, if they're not giving up their home, which
Right.
probably happens a lot, they
Right.
will kill them, but it's not out of a bloodlust. Where I think that's a lot of times how it's played, where they just like orcs enjoy killing, and that's what orcs do. And that's more in the line of, I would say, gnolls.
Yes.
Gnolls fill that slot.
Right. They're not just
Yeah.
pure chaotic evil. Though they are chaotic
they-
evil.
they are.
Yeah, they are officially chaotic evil. But I guess if they're, if you were looking at an alignment scale, gnolls are all the way down it as just
Right.
pure chaos and pure evil. Where orcs are like, yeah, I mean, that's what we do. But like, we also are not just dumb.
Right. And then when you were talking about like they'll breed with non-orcs to produce half-orcs and stuff like that, I mean, that's showing that at least some restraint, and they will stop and talk and get to know somebody that's not an orc.
Right.
For the sake of that. Elves are the one exception. They will slaughter elves mercilessly, all elves, no matter what.
That's great.
No, and they will not keep their homes or anything. They will usually desecrate their lands, and even if they come across like elven runes that haven't been used in a long time, they will destroy them and desecrate them and make it completely unusable for any future people that show up.
Solid move.
Yeah.
So remember that for all encounters with your party. Just ruin it if there's a single, even half elf.
Yeah. Well, that actually does make sense, though. I mean, it's a different way to role play it, where a lot of times as the DM, you're like thinking like, okay, well, how do I make this fight interesting and also, make sure that like, I'm not just focusing the wizard because it just makes sense to focus the wizard. So of course the orcs are going to, or whatever. But, if there's an elf in the party, it's like orcs are going to focus them, and you have a good reason as to why. And maybe they're shouting things in between turns and whatnot to just really ramp up the fact that they're hating elves. And it could be fun,
It's always fun to hate elves, man.
Well, no, and then, maybe it makes the elf feel compelled to hate orcs, or maybe it's a character thing, and now they have to kind of think about, well, why do orcs hate us? And it's like, oh, right, there's like kind of a lot of bad history and bad blood. And, up to the character how they want to take that. But it provides an interesting conflict for them, both in the fact that they have orcs surrounding them and it's only going for them. And there's like 10 of these things. But also in the fact that after the fight, after they've slaughtered all of these orcs, because they will, they then have to sit there and think like, maybe we weren't so different.
We weren't so different after all.
Normal orcs, though, if we want to look
Jump
at the
this-
stat
yeah.
block, really nothing too impressive by themselves. But if you are having a fight where there's just one orc, you're not doing it right. The whole point of these things is that they are supposed to be high in numbers and high in aggression.
Right.
And they just have the shock troopers is actually the word used a lot. Is that here's, 20 or so that we're just going to send in. If they live, great, but most of them probably won't, and then we'll bring in the big guns afterwards. So the standard orc stat block really should be that shock trooper type, which they've half challenge rating, nothing crazy, 13 AC, 15 hit points, and most of their stats really go into the physical attributes of +3 strength, +1 dex, +3 con, -2 int, 0 whiz, 0 charisma. Skills, +2 intimidation, which, yeah, I mean, that makes sense.
Right.
They have dark vision just like everything else. And then for their actions, they have a great axe, which is great. I love having orcs just because I get to roll a lot of d12s. And they do, 1d12 +3 slashing damage with +5 to hit. And then they have a range attack with their javelin. What makes them interesting, though, is they have this aggressive feature that they can use as a bonus action, which lets them move up to their speed towards a hostile creature that they can see. And that one's always fun because I feel like it does a good job of getting across just their ferociousness.
Right.
When you like move them, 30 feet and everyone's like, oh, okay, there's a little bit until they're closer to us. And then they just move another 30 feet in and they're already surrounding around the entire party.
Right.
It's like, oh
And they
my
get an
God.
attack. It's basically dash with a bonus action.
Exactly. So I always really like that.
Yeah. So yeah, by themselves, not all that impressive. One thing though, even like a group of them versus, their challenge rating 1/2. So 2 of them is kind of like a medium, probably not too hard encounter for 4 level 1s.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not really that crazy when compared to a PC, but with stuff like this, like orcs and goblins and gnolls and kobolds, you always need to compare it to commoners, because that's where the lore and the fear comes from.
Right.
A typical standard run-of-the-mill orc versus a typical standard run-of-the-mill human commoner, the orc will absolutely decimate the commoner. There is no chance.
Right. No. 100%.
Aren't commoners like challenge rating 0 or something?
Yeah.
And they have I think 10 hit points. Something like that. So they might survive 2 attacks from a single orc. Like in a one-on-one, I'm putting my money on an orc every time.
Absolutely.
Because they just come up with the great axe. And 1d12 plus 3, pretty high chance. There's a 70% chance that if that hits, it's going to be a 1-hit kill.
Cleave them in half.
Yeah. And again, the idea of these coming into a village and just absolutely ransacking, and they are very particular about who they leave, where they ignore elderly, they ignore children. They're just going after the strong, able-bodied men and women. And
Right.
it's like,
That might pose a threat to them.
right. And that's the stuff that really strikes terror into the heart, because now the only people left to tell the tales are sad children, sad orphans, and old people who have seen this way too many times.
Right.
So a legend definitely grows around it. And I could see, a village being basically just constantly in fear of that orc attack. And this is the classic setup that I've overused, but you walk into a village and people are like, oh my God, people who are strong, please help us. And then immediately
Help us from what? Orcs. Not again.
Yeah.
By the way, commoner only has 4 hit points.
Oh, okay. So it is actually guaranteed if they hit that's a 1-hit kill, because
Yeah.
they have plus 3.
Yeah, 10 in all stats, 10 armor class, 4 hit points.
Yeah.
Passive perception at 10 as well.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Anything else that's not 10?
I feel like they base
Speed is
everything
30
around
feet.
that.
Okay. The next up is the Orc War Chief. So this is for when your party is now probably level 2 and fighting a couple of these things. Though really, I think a level 1 party against 5 or 6 orcs, you're actually really
That's a
getting
tough
close.
fight.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a pretty hard fight.
Right.
Doing anything at level 1's just a
Right, but
crapshoot.
specifically the fact that they have 1d12 with their great axe.
Right, very swingy.
Yeah, and it's not like they're just going to run away, because if you try running...
Yeah, that's enough to take out an entire level 1 health pool
Exactly.
Yeah.
on accident multiple times.
A wizard might even, one hit.
One
they're
crit
down.
and it's over.
One crit and they're literally dead.
That, yeah.
I'm so glad I just finished my wizard. It's like, oh, you got crit by an orc. Oh, 2 12s. Oh,
Do you have 27 health? You don't have 27
give me the
health?
sheet. Give me the sheet.
Oh, man. What a good ritual. Every time a character dies, I take the sheet and I rip it up.
Oh, we should do that with the tablets now.
It's gotten a lot harder with D&D Beyond, but luckily I've got a mallet right here. All right, so the Orc War Chief, again, does get actually significantly ramps up to a challenge rating 4, armor class of 16, HP of 93, similar stats of plus 4 strength, plus 1 dex, plus 4 con, int is 0. Actually, what's interesting, it's got an 11 intelligence,
Right.
which means that goes back to the Ilnelva.
I think.
Yeah, oh man, I should be looking at that one. I'm saying it. Where this is going to be somebody who's definitely a lot smarter, not just smarter than the orcs, but smarter than commoners. They're not dumb by any means.
No, yeah.
11 wisdom and 16 charisma. They get some saving throws too, which is nice. Plus 6 to strength, plus 6 to con, and plus 2 to wisdom. I wish I could get 3 saving throws. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. 16 charisma is interesting. That didn't click before. That's
Well,
pretty high.
So interesting. Yeah, I mean, that is
It's
pretty
just high.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense because of the war chiefs, but
A Tarask and an Orc War Chief walk into a bar. Which one do you notice first? So, yeah, I mean, that's a pretty impressive stat block, honestly. Plus 5 to intimidation, of course. And they get a lot of the same things with the addition of Groomsh's Fury is just a constant thing they have. The Orc deals an extra 1d8 damage when it hits with a weapon attack, with its great axe, now it's doing 1d12 plus 1d8 damage. Same thing with its spear.
+4.
At +4, and instead of +3. It hits pretty hard, and of course, it has multi-attack. So it's not just doing that once.
Right.
So a Orc War Chief against a party of level 1s is probably a TPK.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's challenge rating 4.
It is. But I mean, is a challenge rating 4 always going to be a TPK against a party of level 1s?
Probably.
Really? Because I feel like there's a lot of other challenge rating 4s where they could at least squeak by. Or this one, I feel like it's just going to be like, and 1 hit dead, 2 hits dead, and there's 3 more of you. Let's keep going.
I mean, it's a very raw stat block. And I mean that not in the rules as written. It's just like, here is some martial brutality and a pile of hit points.
Right.
Have fun.
I say 93 hit points for level 1s is a lot to get through.
Yeah. Could be a very fun, like, first boss, though, of like, you're the party starting off in a village and there's an orc raiding party, and like they specifically have to go and fight the Orc War Chief. And if you want them to win, maybe they're in a weakened state, already down to 45 HP because people have been, trying to kill it. But if you don't want it, then just have the thing knock them out and basically be like, well, it's hard to say that, like, oh, you're not even worth my time. Because if they even went to fight against them, the orcs will probably say, yeah, all right, you might get stronger and I'm going to kill you now. So, maybe they get saved last minute.
Yeah,
That's
orcs are not
something.
ones to take prisoners.
No. Well, actually, the Shigar ones are.
Are they?
Yeah.
Guys?
Non-orcs? Non-orc prisoners?
Right. It's not like super common, but they do sometimes take prisoners to sacrifice.
Oh, right.
That's not... I mean, like, the end result's the same, dude.
To an extent.
You have more
It's also
chance to
as
escape.
laborers as well. Yeah, I mean, that's like saying that...
That being said, now you're with the Shigar or whatever, which is an even higher stat block.
Right. Well, luckily in that time of you getting knocked out, everybody leveled up to level 3. So... But I mean, that's how Out of the Abyss went. It was like you needed to find a way to get out. That wasn't, hey, let's go murder everybody.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So it could be fun. Or it could be a TPK. Who knows?
Right.
But more than likely, this is how you wanted to start your campaign, and you're not expecting everybody to die in this.
Right.
Unless we go with those.
That'd be a great way to quit DMing, though. By the way, I'm not interested in this anymore. See you guys.
Oh my God.
Good timing, right?
Really
You're all
great.
dead anyways.
Just tell everybody to put together like really intense characters with tons of backstory, and then first game just show up TPK and be like, I actually don't want to do this. Who wants the DM?
And they also get Battle Cry, which is a 1-a-day thing. It's an action. Each creature of the War Chief's choice that is within 30 feet that's not already affected by Battle Cry can gain advantage on attack rolls until the start of the War Chief's next turn. The War Chief can then make 1 attack as a bonus action.
Yeah, and the fact that they can make an additional attack as well just
Right.
makes that absolutely crazy. I mean, you can have... It's not even like up to their charisma modifier. It's all of them.
Right.
Which for orcs, I mean, we're talking potentially
A lot.
10, 15. That's a lot of advantage.
Yes. Great axes with advantage. That's always scary.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
At least they don't have the thing where they crit on a 19.
Right.
Or no. What is it? Where they
The half-orcs brutal criticals.
Yeah, that's it.
I'm surprised that actually didn't make that into the stat blocks. Actually, I'm not, because it's not fun, actually. It's not a fun mechanic to throw at your players. It's just fucking mean.
I've put it in.
I know. You're a fucking piece of shit.
Well, no, I mean, it was in the arena fight, but that was also another half orc, so I guess that just makes sense. Yeah, anyways.
There should not even be crits against people. It's not even fair.
Have you thought about playing a grave cleric?
What?
They can cancel crits.
Can they?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm not aware of that. That's why I'm playing a
Brave
sport
Clerics are
druid.
pretty nice.
You just gotta
But we'll
level
get
me up
into
to
more of that
15.
next episode.
Yes, we will.
Anyways, Orc Eye of Groomsh, next on the stat block.
Oh, yeah.
These are the orc casters. These are the ones chosen by Groomsh, usually through some sort of dream, which it's really vague on what exactly the dream is, but it makes it very clear to this orc they have been chosen by Groomsh. And to fully complete this, though, they have to sacrifice one of their eyes. So give half of their mortal vision to show their dedication to Groomsh, who then bestows upon them this orc magical powers. This one is only challenge rating 2, hit points of 45, armor class is 16. Interesting, its intelligence is actually less than the war chief of 9, but has a wisdom of 13. Strength and con 16, dex 12, religion of +1. You know, it's going to come up a lot.
Perfect.
Yep, has aggressive just like everything else. Groomsh's Fury, where we'll do the extra 1d8 to attacks. And then it has spell casting, though, which is pretty rare for an orc. But it has spell save DC of 11 +3 to hit. And then it doesn't have lots, so I'm just going to read through it. Its cantrips are guidance, resistance, and I can never say it.
Thaumaturgy.
Thaumaturgy, thank you. First level slots of Blessing Command, and second level of Augury and Spiritual Weapon. So, Spiritual Weapon is not concentration, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, so this is where you could have a really potent combination where they're standing in the back, they get a bless up and bless, do it a second level, bless a bunch of orcs, the orc war chief, so they get a D4 to all their attacks, and then add a spiritual weapon into that, and they're using their actions for the spiritual weapon. And
I believe we had a fight like that recently.
Yeah.
So it's exactly what I did. I mean, that combination just, if that doesn't scream out at you, then, what are you doing? Because, I mean, what are you going to use in combat otherwise? Augury is entirely out of combat. You'd never do that in it. It takes a minute, and you basically find out if an event is going to go well.
It's just command, to be honest.
Yeah, command, which with such a low spell save DC, that one that I would find it hard to justify casting it. But at the same time, first turn, you're probably setting up that bless and spiritual weapon. Then its options are to either run up and start hitting stuff with its spear, which it will do a good job of. I mean, it's 1d6 plus 1d8 damage if it has the shield. And then, again, it's just kind of hitting, but it's not hitting much. Or it can start casting command and take one of your party members out of the fight. So they should really, I would expect them to sit in the back and spend most of their time at least attempting to get these things off.
Right.
I don't know. I question whether that would be accepted, being that orcs aren't exactly known for subtlety. Like, why are you always in the back? It's like, well, my stat block, you see, is best utilized from a position of around 45 feet. No! Groom's nerd, still nerd.
That's actually a really good point.
So I feel like not rushing him in while it seems like a tempting decision.
Right.
Like, it's not you. It's an orc man.
Right.
So I think he should be up in the grill.
No, that's actually...
Losing concentration over and over again.
That's a great point. I totally agree with you. And that's why they have, 4 first level spell slots. And maybe, they just start with bless, and then after that, they just start hitting stuff and using their spiritual weapon or, trying to command because that's still perfectly viable. Yeah, no, I think you've got a great point.
Yeah.
And it actually does. This functions way better than the Orc War Chief as a low-level encounter booster.
You got a good point there, too. Yeah, I would not... This I'd say slightly better against putting a level 1 or 2 party up against as a boss type, where, again, the War Chief, they're just going to die.
Right.
They're just going to die.
This guy's half the health. It's not too bad. And he also has the spear, which is a little less punishing.
Yeah, it's only once you get that spiritual weapon in that it might be doing pretty big damage, but that only has a +3 to hit. So it's probably going to be missing a good amount.
Which is nice.
Nice for a low-level party, definitely.
I love when I get missed by attacks.
Cries in saucy. 21 AC. Getting hit every time.
Actually, that was a dex save.
God. Next up, then, are the Orogs. So these are like the protectors of the tribe, and usually made from not usually. They are a gift from Lothric, who is Groomsh's wife. So generally they just spend their time scavenging kind of the nearby areas and making sure that if the orcs that go out pillaging and get wiped out, there's still orcs at home to protect the rest of the tribe.
Right.
And
their Orogs are considered stronger and smarter than all other orcs.
Right. One thing that was interesting that gets brought up in the lore is the idea that a lot of times chieftains can feel very nervous about Orogs because they are smarter than them. They are overall just going to be better at running the tribe most likely, but they also have no interest in it. All that they want to do is just make sure that everyone stays safe. They are probably the breeding police as well. Like, hey, you over there. Are you pregnant? No? Get pregnant. Come on. Let's keep this up. Because they're sent by Luthic, and that's what she wants.
Right.
So, okay, that would be more silly. You don't have to use that. But they are still, in their own way, going to be a pretty big force to deal with. They're really just an upgraded orc for the most part, though they get plate armor. I don't know why other orcs wouldn't get plate armor, but whatever.
Right. I mean, it's easy upgrades, though. As your party levels up, but you want to throw orcs at them, give them all plate armor and stuff like that.
That's a good point.
Special sharpened axes that do more damage.
Right.
Or whatever.
Oh, the orcs have plate armor. That's like 20,000 gold worth of plate armor, man.
And they raided an armory. I don't know.
And then did what? Hoped it was all for orcs for some reason?
Yes.
Melted down the metal and reforged it. No, they're not really good craftsmen, though.
Yeah, that's the issue. That's why I think only the Orog probably gets the plate armor. It's like, oh, we can only figure this out once or twice, like every year.
But this would be good, though, if your party was tasked with going to the orc tribe and actually, like, you know, dealing with them. You're like, oh, you know, we killed a couple of orcs outside. How big of a deal could it be? And then you get in and there's like 5 of these Orogs around. And it's like, oh, they are much, much scarier than what we saw before. On top of the 15 or so orcs that are in here and the orc war chief. It will be one of those, if they are lower level, one of those moments where they go, ooh, diplomacy sounds nice.
So challenge rating 2. Hit points of 42, strength of 18, con of 18, wisdom or intelligence of 12. So officially the highest out of that. And wisdom and charisma of 11 to 12 respectfully. They get aggressive just like everything else. And then they have a multi-attack with 2 great axe attacks of +6 to hit and 1d12 +4.
Interestingly, they don't get Groomsh's Fury.
Yeah.
So they don't get that additional D8, which I think fits flavor-wise.
Yeah.
Because they're not sent by Groomsh, they're sent by his wife.
Right.
Who's less furious, I guess.
Yeah. So one thing I find interesting, though, it talks about, so they are more intelligent than the war chiefs, but other than that, they're a lot weaker in terms of how hard they hit and their hit points and everything. Mm-hmm. But it keeps going on and on how the war chiefs are so threatened by them. It's like a one-on-one war chief versus an Orog, and the war chief's going to win.
I think the idea is that they're afraid of them organizing and having the strength of the tribe behind the Orog other than the war chief. And also, you know, they're not putting much thought behind it. They're like, oh, you know, we're giving this guy plate armor. Why does he get plate armor and I don't get plate armor? And everyone's like, he's protecting the tribe. And he's like, I'm protecting the tribe. That's all I do is I protect the tribe. Why don't I get plate armor? So that's intimidating to them.
Yeah.
I want that to play out. Yeah. That's good.
But yeah, so basically souped up orcs. These are the type of thing that would be good for if you go into an orc encampment. As you get deeper into it, you start facing Orogs to make it harder, like as you were saying.
Right.
Or I think it would be interesting to have Orogs can be chiefs. That's not common, but it can happen. Mm-hmm. So kind of homebrewing the Orog stat block to rise them up to like a challenge rating 5 war chief or something. Right. Where they get battle cry, and maybe now they do get Groomsh's Fury and hit really hard and all that.
But they still have plate.
Yeah.
It would basically be it. You just give them plate and Groomsh's Fury.
And then their intelligence.
And battle cry. Yeah. I could see that. I think what it said in the lore again was that if the chieftain dies for some reason, and nobody really knows, you know, what to do from there, the Orogs do step in to keep order. And so that's also another area where things become intimidating to them because the Orogs are good at just like keeping everybody in line. But without them, after a chieftain passes, they may delve into chaos as a tribe without somebody to come up and say, hey, we're going to get together. We're going to figure out who the next leader is. So everybody chill out or else I'm going to kill you.
Right. And that is all the orc stuff within the monster manual. I think that's probably a good stopping point for part 1. We've been going on for a while. Part 2, next episode, we'll dive into all the Volo stat blocks and how to use them, which really freshen things up.
Yeah.
They're no longer just like, meat sacks that hit hard.
Right.
They get some interesting abilities, magic, stuff like that.
So I'm excited for it, especially to talk about fun ways to use that, the bursty boy. Whatever its name was, I'm sticking with that.
Cool. And now we can move on to our very first Ask Monsters a Multiclass segment.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, this is the thing we're doing.
That'll be fun.
Yeah.
What's our question?
I don't know. That was your job.
I'm going to pull up the specific question because it was phrased so elegantly. And just because...
It can be both, Kevin.
Actually, what is the difference? Is that just a pronunciation or are those different words?
I don't like. You can't just
Elegantly.
You aren't
eloquently?
eloquent if you like are elegant. Like what an elegant woman. She doesn't have to be talking necessarily.
Okay.
Eloquent specifically is talking.
Got it.
You can. It's probably just elegant speech.
All right. So, our question presented by Stephen R. Knoll, who I think we've done some monsters for him before.
For sure.
He's the one who loves the Kuo-toa.
Kuo-toa.
Kuo-toa. So he asked, what creates a better challenge for players? One fight with one strong monster or several fights with weaker monsters? And I think to us, this felt like, obviously the answer is this, this, and this. But it brings up a great question around the action economy in 5th edition, which is vitally important. And I think a big mistake that DMs will face when they first start off. Because the idea of, I think this is a scenario a lot of DMs have seen, where you have this big bad evil guy that you want to be this incredibly tough and amazing fight, and you put all of these cool abilities that he can use, and then on the first turn the monk stuns him, and then they just lock him down for the rest of the entire fight, and
he dies on round 2.
Exactly. Yeah. So I guess the action economy is, again, just very important because of that, which to me makes the second being the kind of obvious. If one fight with a strong monster, or I'm sorry, several fights with weaker monsters is almost always going to be more of a challenge to your party.
Yeah, absolutely. We've definitely figured this out the hard way. So it's not inherently obvious up front. We just played so long that we've come to that realization. I could definitely remember when you first started DMing, Jared, you going that route of like, oh, this is this really cool, tough, big thing. This is going to be an awesome battle. And then I could just picture you getting so incredibly frustrated as we just kicked the shit out of it in a round and a half. And then it's just a nothing fight.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was like, I just could not figure out, just like, why is it that these just always suck?
Yeah, and you like kept going up in challenge rating and going up, and then eventually you hit a point where you're hitting something that's just going to one-shot your party, and then the balance just completely flips. Mm-hmm. It's like, it always seems to be the two polar extremes. It's really hard to find that balance.
Right.
In the middle. That being said, stuff like multi-attack does help a bit. That's why it's so incredibly common with monsters, especially like even before players get extra attack and stuff. That's supposed to help a bit with that because then they could get multiple attacks on their turn. But it's still not enough because you're having 4, 5, 6, 7 even like players ganging up on one monster. Everything that you're doing focusing on them.
Yeah, definitely. And I see it happen a lot in Critical Role, actually, which you two will not relate to, but I feel like a lot of people who listen to us probably will.
What? That's not very popular,
yeah,
is it?
It's not very popular. Where a lot of times I'm sitting there and I'm just like, like a fight is introduced and I'm like, this is going to be absolutely awful. And Matt Mercer's sitting there like, ooh, this is going to be crazy. They're fighting a, what's that lizard dragon that we talked about.
Bahir?
The Bahir, yeah. They fought a Bahir, and there's literally 7 people at the table, and it's like, oh, this is going to be such an intense fight. And then it just was killed in like 2 rounds, and he's like, I don't know how that happened. And this was like early, like first campaign. I'm pretty sure, I don't remember. But either way, he was just like, he had that moment of like, why did my big boss just get absolutely destroyed? And it's like, because they just have more things they can do.
Right.
If you look at what a PC can do on a turn, it is multiple, I'm going to shut down a single target. And then it just keeps going and going and going. So that was a tough lesson to learn. And I remember many times getting overly frustrated. So I'm glad I've learned that lesson and hope everyone else can as well. Now, a way then to make your big bad evil guy fights still feel like there's one person who's like the big focus is minions.
Right.
And you gotta have those minions. For a vampire, it's their vampire spawns. For a giant, it's the whatever they've enslaved, hill giants, goblins, just
right.
Throw some of those in addition to it to just make sure that the fight just keeps going. And it doesn't need to have like a set limit, because once you put a set limit, then somebody casts fireball, kills those 4 and they're gone.
Right.
But if you have a way to just like have this cannon fodder that just keeps replenishing and just makes it a much more interesting fight.
For sure. Even if it's significantly weaker, just their presence makes a big difference because all of a sudden now they could go and harass the casters in the back.
Yep.
Because again, when you're dealing with the one big thing, you have all your martial characters gang around it and lock it down there, where your casters are free to pull out all their big spells and concentrations and be fine. Well, now there's these little goblins, which on their own aren't a threat, running around the marshals and harassing your casters and threatening their concentration and giving them disadvantage on ranged attacks. And all of a sudden now here are entire actions having to go to deal with these little things.
Right.
And it makes a very big difference.
Right. And depending on how you want the fight to feel and how you want the balance to come out, the stronger you make those minions, the more of a focus it's going to be for them to kill the minions first and then take on the big guy. Now, as I was talking about just a second ago, having like an unending number of minions, that doesn't always have to be the case. That can be a way to go about it. But if you have, the big bad evil guy who's got 300 HP and whatever else, he's going to be really hard to kill. But then you have 4 minions who just do a lot of damage but are really weak. It's in the party's favor to then figure out who is it better that we attack first. Because the big guy's doing a ton of damage and he's casting spells that are really hurting us. But these little guys, when they get up to our casters, are going to kill them in 2 hits. And that brings out some strategy as now the party has to really figure out where their efforts are best focused.
Right.
Because any party, once they figure this out, just start to steamroll the DM, or I guess, again, in my experience, once they realize that if they focus on one thing, all efforts on one enemy at a time, it is so much better than everybody fighting their own respective one.
Right.
Because once you start tipping that action economy in your favor, you can just see the fight just start to steamroll and just keeps tumbling and tumbling. I guess snowball is the better word. So I always make sure that that minions are there and they're going to be there long enough to actually make a difference.
I think you really have to be careful with that because if you add very durable minions,
right,
the fight will turn into a slog before you even know it.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's nice to have multi-round combat for your big bad evil guy. 10 rounds is not. So if you balance this out in your head and you're like, all right, we got to make sure this guy doesn't die in one hit. He's a minion. You're going to have to reduce his damage if he's going to last a super long time. And that gets really not fun really fast. So I personally always lean towards more of things, especially because things like AoEs, you almost lean towards kind of taking the player's ability to do crazy big damage from them. Almost embrace that,
Yeah.
Put 15 goblins in a 20-foot circle.
Right.
It doesn't matter. Balance around the idea that that's going to happen.
Right. You're basically looking at those spellcasters and saying, yeah, do it. But now you're using your 3rd level spell or whatever level spell to deal with the minions instead of the hold person that you were saving for the big bad guy.
Right.
So I set that up with the hag fight we had recently, where there was the Burr hag who by herself had 90 something HP. Plus an armor of Agathis I threw on because fuck you guys. You blew through it in one hit. You smited her. I was so mad. There's a level 5 armor of Agathis. But anyways, you played that well. Very well. But I put the ice mephits around, which it doesn't matter if those would normally be minions. It fit. It's the Burhag. And it was just something that you had to focus on, at least to some extent. Now, I think that fight lasted 3 rounds or something, and you ended up doing some crazy stuff. Yeah. Blight. Yeah, you cast Blight on her. But, I definitely put those in there with the thought in mind of somebody needs to deal with these or else you're going to just get pummeled. And that was actually a much closer fight than I think it seemed to be, because at one point, the Life Cleric was running away from the Ice Mephits and took 3 opportunity attacks and was left with 1 HP. Or enough that any other hit would have taken her down. And then she healed everybody for 100 something healing in one round. Because we have a level 8 life cleric and it's just ridiculous. So I find it really fun to think about how that balance is going to play out. And I think it's something I've gotten a lot better at and no longer feel that frustration after a big fight. I know how to make big fights feel challenging. And that is, again, just those minions.
Yeah. If you are really set on having one big thing, I guess Out of the Abyss spoilers, But at the end, the very last fight of the Demogorgon, not the Demogorgon, just Demogorgon. That's his name. Too much Stranger Things. Yeah.
He's also going to get really upset if you say his name wrong.
Yeah.
So
that was a party versus one big thing, but it felt like a tough fight because you guys got fucking tenderized before that.
Yeah.
Like it was a long drawn out series of tough battles leading up to that, burning resources and hit points. So you went into it already weakened. And then on top of that, you can give these big bad guys the things, and a lot of the monster manual or the official monsters don't do it anyways, with legendary actions and layer actions, ways for these things to act outside of their one turn, which does help a lot as well, kind of giving them more to the favor of the action economy, where they'll have like 3 multi-attacks or 4 multi-attacks, and then they get legendary actions where 3 times in a round they can act outside of their turn, and then layer actions on round 20 they could do something else as well. If you start doing that stuff, you can get it to a more interesting, one versus many fight, but it takes a lot of planning, and like I said, you have to really kind of beat up on your players beforehand.
Which to some extent, that's how 5e is supposed to be.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
That's another thing that people kind of forget, and why a lot of times I think strong monsters fall flat, is because you don't set it up so that there are 3 encounters beforehand using resources, using HP before they get to this big fight. So they get to the big fight and they're like, great, where do I start with my spell list? Oh, right, at my 5th levels. And all right, I shut them down in 1 turn. It's like you need to burn some of those so that way they only have that 5th level left and a couple of 1st levels. And they're like, oh my God, like, did I plan accordingly for the day? Because this is a lot worse than I thought it was. But then I look over at Will, who's playing a druid right now. And every once in a while after sessions, I'll just pull up your character sheet to see how many spell slots you have left. You are a hoarder. You're like, I don't know what I'm doing to let you just sit on all of those. Because I'll look at others and like, you're down to like a single smite left. The Eldritch Knight blows through them all. The Life Cleric, it's like a couple healing spells here and there, a 3rd level just in case somebody dies. And then there's Musty. It's like both your 4th levels, most of your 3rd levels. Like, how do you do it?
I do it with my Warlock mentality.
You only get one or 2 big ones.
Spells. That's how I go into every battle. It's like, I only have 2 spells today.
Well, it's working out well for you, but I might need to pump up the encounter rate, I guess.
Yeah, the other problem with druids is just a lot of situational shit where you can control battlefield, but if that's not on the table, it's like, all right, I can do mediocre damage then.
Right. Well, all right. That from what I hear there, it's throw more weak monsters at you to get
hundreds
your AoEs
of thousands
out.
of them.
A goblin arena.
And that's another thing that I'm noticing now. There is a mechanic in this game that ends up on players' plates where killing a thing gets you a thing. Dark One's Blessing, there's a few others. I personally, as a spore druid, can make zombies out of humanoids and beasts. If you for some reason got it in your head that this game was a one bad guy versus many good guys kind of thing, you're going to end up kind of screwing that player over.
Yeah, that's true.
You can actually technically balance this game so it's one bad guy against everybody else. It's just you're fighting against the system, and you are robbing a mechanic out of this game.
Yeah.
So that's something to keep in mind.
You're killing AoEs.
You kill AoEs. Yeah, you just like kill huge aspects of this game by trying to fit that into your headcanon.
I can't remember now the last time I did one monster fights. It's I think just been thrown out of my vocabulary, to be honest.
Yeah. I don't think that's also the best idea, especially we've talked about monsters before that just would have no sensible reason to have any minions like within a 12-mile radius of them. And that's okay too. You just have to remember legendary actions, lair actions, stuff like that.
Right. Let's look at the Yeti fight. That was one that happened in our last session.
Yeah.
Before the Burhag. Of course, I didn't put that as like a big boss for you guys to fight. But that combat was over in, I think, 2 rounds, maybe?
Yeah,
right.
Because once you just, again, have 4 people focusing on... You didn't even get
I didn't even get a turn.
3 people focusing on one monster, and it was just gone. I think it was like 150 hit points or something, just slopped off. So, it's... If I'm putting it in there, yes, it's because the monster doesn't need other things, or it doesn't make sense for them to have other minions, but I'm not using it as my ultimate fight at the end of the encounter where you guys are supposed to be haggard. It's the one that's trying to take up resources, and that's
Right.
it.
Yeah.
And it did.
Yeah, it did. So for that, it was a success.
Yeah.
But if that was your boss fight, and then I was like, everybody gets a long rest. It'd be
Sick!
Like, oh, yeah, boring.
Yeah. One last thought. If you are, say, homebrewing, like a big bad evil guy, and it's really powerful and they have like crazy spellcasting and martial prowess and all this stuff, I would consider splitting them into like 2 or 3 different creatures. Or
This
monsters
is
or
the
humans
angry
or whatever.
GM thing.
Oh, is it? Oh, okay.
You haven't seen that?
No.
He's talking about the like multi enemies.
Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Given.
Yeah, so
I get what
instead
Kevin's
of one challenge rating 15 thing, you create 3 challenge rating 5 things. And like this one's the spellcaster, this one's the tank, this one hits like a truck.
Okay.
And then you have three creatures
Right.
that you're fighting.
Okay.
And
Yep.
it's to still try and get the same feel of a fight.
No, that makes sense. And I think
Yeah.
that's a very smart way to go about it. What I was saying is kind of similar. The Angry GM has a whole write-up about this idea of making a single enemy feel like a tough fight. And his thing is basically, treat it like multiple enemies who just take up one square, where it's got 300 health, and at 300 health, it gets 3 separate initiatives. And then once it drops to 200 health, you take off one of those. So now it doesn't have multi-attack. But maybe it enters into a phase 2 type thing where,
Right.
it loses its 3rd multi-attack, but it gains dragon breath. Like whatever makes sense for
Right.
the monster. And, it makes it feel like a more phased fight, but you can also feel a change throughout it. And it gives it, again, 3 separate initiatives. And you actually hit that point of, all right, I hit out 100. It's a good article, worth a read, like most of Angry GM stuff. And also, like most of it, I don't use any of it, really. I use it in the sense of I like it. I'm like,
That's a good
cool.
idea. I'm not going to get around to that one.
I take the parts I like.
Yeah.
It's very good inspiration of how to run your game. So yeah, action economy.
Yeah.
Don't let your players have it at the start of a fight.
And what was the question?
We stayed really on topic with
Yeah.
you.
The question was, do I have any candy lying around the house?
Let me know when you do.
So yeah, if you have any questions you want us to dive into way too much detail on and take up a quarter of the podcast, hit us up on Twitter or Reddit. We might get to it.
We might. We got a lot.
I said we can't promise.
I was kind of surprised. And thank
Yeah.
you to all the people who
Yeah,
have submitted
absolutely, yeah.
questions. This will be able to continue on for a good bit of time.
Yeah, you're saying, and this might, once we get through all of the multi-classes, which is a reality no one likes to talk about, it will happen. We will hit the end of multi-classing. And then we need another segment. So if this keeps going, I think that spawned a really good discussion. So this could potentially do it.
Nice. Yeah, I think we got 25 multi-classes left, which is a lot.
Yeah, I forgot the Artificer added a good amount, 12 more.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyways, thanks for listening.
Next time on Monsters and Multiclass.
Join us next time as we discuss the Artificer Cleric multi-class, and then the Orcs Part 2. The Orcaning? I feel like we said the Goblining last time, so Orcs. Orc. And then we'll answer another question most likely, because why not? That was fun.